If you've ever wondered why seasoned thru-hikers will quietly tell you to never shower at an Appalachian Trail hostel, not alone, not at night, not without a plan, this is the story they're talking about. Of every Appalachian Mountains horror story I've covered, this is the one I keep coming back to. Not because of what was out there in the deep woods that night, because of what stood in the shower stall directly next to a one-armed thru-hiker named Terry. 10 feet from a bunkhouse full of sleeping people who never heard a thing. There are 2 details in this account I haven't heard anyone else talk about. The first is what Terry noticed about the water on the other side of that wall. And once you hear it, you'll never stop listening for it. The second is what happened 20 minutes after he locked the bunkhouse door behind him. Stay with me to the end. Terry walked out of that shower block alive for one reason. He caught 2 specific things wrong with that stall before whatever was in there caught him. If you ever hike, camp, or stay at a hostel anywhere in these mountains, those 2 signs could save your life. You want to know what they are before you need to. The Appalachian Trail spits you out at Standing Bear Farm after you've already given it everything you have. You drop out of the Smoky Mountains, out of that big, humming wilderness that doesn't particularly care whether you make it, and suddenly there's a gravel lot, a hand-painted sign, and a cluster of old outbuildings that look like they've been slowly losing an argument with the woods for about 100 years. The property sits right at the edge of Hartford, Tennessee. The main farmhouse is turn-of-the-century, weathered white, the kind of building that's been witness to enough seasons it stopped keeping count. Behind it, a row of multi-generational structures stretch toward the tree line, a gear shed, a bunk barn, an outdoor shower block at the far end with a single orange bulb burning above the door. The woods press against every edge of that property like they're deciding whether to take it back. Terry Colwell came off the trail on a raw Thursday in late October, 44 years old, former long-haul trucker out of eastern Tennessee. He had one arm, lost the other below the elbow to a jackknifed rig on I-81, and a prosthetic that lived in his pack at night, and a private deal he'd made with himself inside a rehabilitation facility that he hadn't told a single living person about. Finish the trail. That was the whole deal. Just finish it and you're still someone. He paid cash at the front desk, didn't offer a trail name. Most thru-hikers have one by this point. Asked one question: was the shower free? The woman behind the desk said yes. Everyone else was already in for the night. Terry thanked her the way he thanked everyone, genuinely, specifically, using her name from the name tag. Then he tucked that friendliness back behind his eyes like a man closing a gate. He headed out alone. Headlamp off. One towel over one shoulder. Prosthetic stowed. He pushed through the outer door of the shower block. 6 stalls. All curtains open. All empty. He picked the middle one. Old habit. Options on both sides. He undressed the way a one-armed man does when nobody's watching. Without apology, without hurry. Got the water going as hot as it would run. Braced his one arm flat against the cold tile. Closed his eyes. For the first time in 4 days, every single muscle in his body let go. That's when the outer door opened. Now, I know what you're thinking. Someone picked the stall next to him. It's a hostel. It happens all the time. People come in late. They're quiet. They don't want to wake anyone up. But here's the detail that nobody mentions when they tell this story. The water in that stall had been running long before Terry pushed through that outer door. The woman at the front desk told him the shower was free. And what he notices next, 2 things back to back, within about 60 seconds of each other, is the reason this particular deep woods hiking story has stayed with me. Keep watching. Footsteps on wet concrete. One set, unhurried. Terry didn't open his eyes. It was a hostel. Someone forgot something. It happens all the time. He cataloged the sound the way a trucker catalogs an engine note. Not conscious, just reflex. The footsteps passed stall 1, past stall 2, past the open stall on Terry's left, which was empty, which was right there, which was the obvious choice if you were just looking for a place to rinse off. They stopped at the stall directly to his right, the one sharing his wall. Curtain rings scraped the rod, slow, deliberate, the way you'd move them if you weren't in any particular hurry, or if you wanted to be sure someone heard you doing it. The water turned on cold. Terry kept his eyes closed for another few seconds, counted his own heartbeat, told himself what any reasonable person tells themselves in a hostile shower block on the Appalachian Trail on a Thursday night. Someone picked the stall next to me. This is what people do. This is not a thing. He opened his eyes. That's when he noticed the first wrong note. A full 60 seconds had passed since that faucet kicked on. The water next door ran cold and stayed cold. Not lukewarm, not slow to heat. Ice cold, straight from the pipe, and whoever was on the other side hadn't made a single sound. No sharp breath. No shuffling feet adjusting to the temperature. No reaching for the handle to try for something warmer. The stream hit the floor at a single fixed point and stayed there. Terry knew water, knew what it sounded like hitting tile under a body versus hitting tile on empty floor. A person standing under a stream displaces it, scatters it, throws it sideways off shoulders and arms. This stream wasn't scattered. It was hitting the same 6-inch circle on the concrete, clean and undisturbed, like it was raining straight down onto a floor where nobody was standing. He stared at the partition wall. Gray cinder block. Wet. Ordinary. Then the second wrong note bled through it. Low. Tuneless, rhythmic, but not humming the way a person hums when they're happy or passing the time. This was different. The kind of sound a person makes when they are doing something that requires all of their attention and none of their conscious thought. Patient, automatic, marking time the way an engine idles in a dark parking lot, not going anywhere, not finished, just running. Terry cleared his throat. One short sound, the universal hostile signal for "I know you're there." The humming stopped. Not gradually, like a switch thrown. Silence, both faucets running, the drain gurgling under his feet. Then a single bare foot slid into view beneath the partition. Pale, perfectly still. Toes pointed directly at Terry's side of the wall, not resting, not shifting weight, just placed, aimed. He had never heard any clothes come off on the other side of that wall. Okay. I want to stop here for a second, because Terry Colwell is a former long-haul trucker who drove solo through the night for 20 years. He has been in enough truck stops, enough rest areas, enough sketchy situations in the dark to know the difference between something that feels off and something that actually is. This is not someone who spooks easily. This is not someone who jumps at shadows. And he is standing there in that shower block at Standing Bear Farm in Hartford, Tennessee, doing the math on two things. Water hitting empty floor, a hum that stopped like a switch. And the math is not adding up. What happens next, the way that foot moves, is where this Appalachian Trail horror story turns into something else entirely. Terry shut his faucet off. The sound dropped by half. Now there was only one stream running. Cold water, other stall, hitting the same fixed point on the floor it had been hitting since the moment it turned on. He watched the foot beneath the partition. The foot didn't move. The drain gurgled. The single orange bulb above the outer door hummed faintly in its fixture. He calculated. Towel on the hook inside his curtain. Pack. Prosthetic. Clothes, boots. sitting on the bench outside the stall. To get out, he needed the towel first, then 4 feet of wet concrete to the bench, then he needed to dress one-handed fast enough to actually matter. He reached for the towel. The foot pivoted, slowly, precisely. The heel rotated on the wet tile and the toes swung to track him, the way a compass needle swings to find north. Terry had taken exactly 1 step left. The foot had corrected for it without a single moment of hesitation, as though whatever was attached to it on the other side of that wall could see straight through 4 inches of cinder block. His chest tightened, jaw clamped shut. He stood completely still for 3 full seconds. Then he shifted his weight right, barely an inch, just a test, and watched the floor beneath the partition. The toes adjusted. No sound, no creak of body weight redistributing, no splash of water displaced by movement. The foot simply corrected, smooth and immediate, tracking him the way a security camera tracks movement, mechanical, patient, certain. Terry grabbed the towel, wrapped it one-handed with the speed of long practice, hooked the curtain aside and moved for the exit. 5 steps, measured. He was not going to run. Running broadcasts something, and he had spent enough bad nights on enough dark interstates to know you don't broadcast to things you don't understand. 4 steps. 3. The humming started again. Same stall, same tuneless register, but louder now, pressed close against the partition wall, mouth almost touching the cinder block, as though whatever was making it had moved to close the distance between them. Patient, marking time. 2 steps. 1. The outer door didn't open. Terry put his shoulder into it. 1 shoulder, 1 arm, wet feet sliding on concrete. The door bowed hard in its frame but held. Autumn damp had swollen the wood flush against the jamb. He reset his feet, drove again. The door groaned, didn't move. Behind him, the cold water kept hitting the same fixed point on the floor, and the humming kept going. But now there was something wrong with the geometry of it. The sound was pressed against the partition wall. He could tell by the way it carried, flat and close. But the water stream behind him was still landing in the same spot it had always landed. Same floor. Same 6-inch circle. Undisturbed. Whatever had pressed itself against that wall had crossed a 4-foot stall without breaking the stream. Terry stopped pushing against the door, because some part of his brain, the part that had kept him alive through 17 years of night driving and 1 very bad morning on I-81, had just done the geometry, and the geometry didn't work. I want to be precise about something, because this is the part that made me put this account down when I first read it. The hum is coming from the partition wall. Terry can tell by the way the sound sits flat and close against the cinder block. Whatever is making it has pressed itself right up to that dividing wall. But the cold water behind him is still hitting the same 6-inch circle on the floor. Same spot. Undisturbed. Unbroken. That stall is 4 feet wide, and nothing crossed it. I cannot construct a physical explanation for that. I have tried. But what Terry sees in the last half second before the light goes out, the thing he doesn't tell anyone for a long time after, is what I haven't heard anyone else describe. Keep watching. We are almost there. Terry ran the inventory 1 more time, fast, clinical. The way you triage a jackknifed cab at 2 in the morning when the adrenaline hasn't hit yet and your brain is still doing math. 1 swollen door. 1 arm. Wet feet on concrete. No boots. No phone. No signal out here in the Hartford, Tennessee dark, even if he had one. 2 exits. The stuck door in front of him. Old wood, autumn swollen, shoulder resistant. Or back through the stall row, past whatever was in that shower, toward the inner access hatch at the far end of the building, propped open with a broken cinder block. opening onto the dark side of the property, the side without the light, the side where the tree line started 30 yards out and then went on for a very long time. The humming pressed against the wall like it was trying to come through it. Terry made his choice. He snatched his boot from the bench in passing, one boot, his right, the motion smooth and automatic, and swung the heel hard at the lower panel of the outer door, right at the base, where the wood was thinnest, where the swelling was worst, where a door that old, that tired, that long past caring would give first. The crack was enormous in the quiet of that building. The door blew open. Cold Appalachian night poured in, raw, damp, carrying the smell of wet leaves and creek water and the particular darkness of old Tennessee mountains that have been old since before anyone was around to call them that. Gravel bit into his bare left foot. His one booted right foot found purchase. He was out. He was through. 30 yards of open ground between him and the bunkhouse, and he crossed it without looking back, not because he was disciplined, but because some animal part of him had already decided that what was behind him was safer unknown. Gravel tore his bare foot. He didn't slow down. He hit the bunkhouse door, pushed through, locked it behind him, stood in the dark hallway with his back flat against the wood, chest hammering, wet towel still wrapped around his waist, one boot on and one boot off like something out of a fever dream. He stood there for a long time. Then he walked to his bunk, lay down on top of the sleeping bag without getting in, stared at the ceiling. Around him, 2 section hikers from Vermont breathed slow and even in the dark. A retired schoolteacher snored softly from the far corner. Nobody stirred. The world in that bunkhouse was completely, almost insultingly, normal. Terry stared at the ceiling and did not sleep. And then, about 40 seconds after he'd gotten horizontal, 40 seconds after his heartbeat had started its slow crawl back towards something human, the outer shower block door swung open. He heard it from the bunkhouse. The particular groan of that old wood, that swollen frame, moving on its hinges. The door he had kicked open. The door that had required a boot heel and everything he had left to break through. It swung open easily, like it had never been stuck at all. Footsteps on gravel, unhurried, one set, moving away from the shower block, away from the bunkhouse toward the far edge of the property where the orange light didn't reach and the tree line waited in the dark. Terry lay completely still. He counted the footsteps until he couldn't hear them anymore. He got to 19. Then there was nothing. Just the Appalachian night doing what it does out there in those old Tennessee mountains, which is breathe and wait and keep whatever it keeps to itself. The outdoor shower was still running. He made it out, that's the payoff. But that shower was still running. And Terry counted 19 footsteps moving toward a tree line that doesn't have an end. The detail I mentioned at the very start. The thing he doesn't tell anyone until much later. We're about to get there. Morning came gray and damp the way October mornings do in Hartford, Tennessee, like the sun tried and then thought better of it. Terry was the first one up. He did something most people watching this would not have done. He laced his boot, walked back out across the gravel, and pushed through the outer door of the shower block alone. Not because he wasn't afraid, because he'd learned that the things you walk away from don't get smaller. They get bigger, and he'd already let too many things get too big. The door swung open without a fight. No swollen wood, no resistance, 6 stalls, all curtains open, all dry. No footprints on the concrete. The split in the lower door panel where his boot heel had connected. That was real. Everything else looked like a place where nothing had ever happened. He showered anyway. Middle stall, one arm against the tile. Eyes open this time. At breakfast he learned names, asked follow-up questions, remembered details. Didn't say a word about the night before. He finished the trail 11 weeks later on a cold ridge in Vermont, feeling absolutely nothing, which was its own kind of done. He'd made a deal with himself inside a rehabilitation facility, witnessed by nobody, and he'd kept it. He still picks the middle stall. The curtain stays open now. Here's the detail Terry only mentions later, once, to one person. The shower stopped running that night, not while he was sprinting across the gravel, not while he was breaking through the bunkhouse door. It stopped about 20 minutes after he locked it behind him. 20 minutes. That's not confusion. That's not a lost hiker. Whatever was in that shower block at Standing Bear Farm finished what it was doing in its own time, walked into the Appalachian Mountains on 19 footsteps, and didn't come back. And this is why I told you to stay until the end. Terry walked out of that shower block alive because he caught two things wrong before it was too late. The first was the water, the way it sounded hitting the floor of the stall beside him, the way water sounds when nothing is standing in it. The second was what he could see under the divider, what he couldn't, and how the two didn't match. Those are the two signs. Not a noise in the woods, not a bad feeling. Two specific physical things you can actually check the next time you're standing in a shower block at a trail hostel after dark. If something is on the other side of that wall and one of those two is off, you don't finish your shower. You leave. I'm not going to tell you what I think it was. The version you're imagining right now is worse than anything I could give you. If you've hiked the AT, if you've stayed at one of those old hostels and heard something on the other side of a wall that didn't add up, drop it in the comments. I read everyone. And share this with someone who hikes these mountains, just so they know to keep the curtain open.